Right, it all starts Friday night, Saturday morning. Everton versus West Ham is our 1:30 a.m. kickoff. Bob Holmes, Everton, looking to extend that winning run they're on currently to 5 in a row. Do you fancy that? Do you think that's possible? Are they in with a shout this season?
Yep. They do things in streaks, don't they? They won 4 at the start of the season, then they lost 2 or 3, and now they're on a winning run. And they're doing it without James Rodriguez, which is a slight surprise because he was considered their main man, just about the main man, at the beginning of the season. And I'm afraid doubts are being raised now about him, mainly in Madrid, along with Gareth Bale. The two are being linked. They're suggesting that it was good riddance, and they're questioning the heart of both Bale and James Rodriguez. They do tend to get injured a lot, and when they are injured, they stay injured rather a long time. And this is perhaps in the mind. It has been suggested before, it will be again. And I think Carlo Ancelotti has got a bit of a job on here to persuade James Rodriguez that playing in the winter in England is not necessarily a ball of fun. It's cold. The tackles are hard. It can be a bit unpleasant out there, and you've just got to get stuck in. And neither Bale nor he are doing this. So having invested quite a lot of money and big hopes at the beginning of the season, question marks there, I think, over him. And as there have been throughout his career, he's made big moves and he's not quite delivered. So, well, I hope I'm wrong, but I just wonder. But Everton they're showing that they are a team. Calvert-Lewin is not scoring every game now, but they're still winning. And they're on a roll. And I think they're playing good football. And Ancelotti is a shrewd customer, and I think that they're going to have a successful season. I think, definitely, whatever happens to James Rodriguez.
West Ham, Des Corkill, come into this match in 10th position. David Moyes has taken a lot of stick, but I think Arvin pointed out in one of the previous shows, this is probably his best stint as a manager for a long, long time at West Ham.
Best stint as a manager since Everton. He's going back to a team who he set up in a very similar kind of way. Everton are still celebrating their 2nd title of the year, by the way, so I expect a bit of a come down at some stage.
He's still digging at them.
But West Ham, you know what? I probably have got to change my mind about West Ham. I was convinced that they would dire and would go right down to the bottom after a couple of early wins. They have carried on. They've got that a little bit of buoyancy and confidence about them. They are scoring a reasonable number of goals. They're showing resilience. Their first half performance against Brighton, for example, was woeful, but then they came back twice to equalise. Both horrible efforts, but very Moyes Everton style.
Yeah, exactly.
I can maybe see West Ham doing a Moyes Everton or Moyes West Ham doing a Moyes Everton on the Ancelotti Everton, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I fancy West Ham to upset Everton's title celebrations.
All right. Well, that one is 1:30. That one kicks off. Everton against West Ham. Manchester United take on Aston Villa at 4 a.m. on Saturday. Arvin Sidhu, United looking to extend their unbeaten record in the Premier League to 10 matches. They are on a good run under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Are you surprised that do you think he's turned the corner?
As he seems to have rediscovered some fighting spirit. Question, we talked about whether genuine Premier League challenges. I don't think that's something that we can define yet. But clearly, this is all kind of building up towards January 17th or maybe January 18th, our time, isn't it? When Man United go away to Liverpool. It would be 1 year since United has lost away from home. That's whatever you say about Ole, that's an incredible record. But he's going up against a Villa squad who are punching above their weight and doing really well as well. So if there was a game this weekend, besides the Tottenham Leeds game, for obvious reasons that I would say, this would be the game of the weekend as well, because this has got two teams who are right on good form right now. But again, United, when I looked at that game when they won against Wolves, again, for me, since Bruno Fernandes has come into the Premier League, there's no better player. The amount of goals and assists that he's involved in, that glorious pass that he gave. Yes, Rashford, it took a deflection, no doubt. But without that pass, it doesn't work. Yep. So for me, Bruno Fernandes, best player in the Premier League since he's arrived.
Now, Bob, too much reliance on one player. What if the hamstring twangs this weekend and he's out for 6 weeks or something like that? They're up the creek, aren't they?
Oh, you're talking about Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
Well, yes, I agree. I think he's the player of the year, isn't he? Player of last year. Definitely. If there's a vote on it now, I think he would win it. He has carried United. And don't forget, they were, when he joined, they got hammered by Liverpool, or hammered 2-0, but it was a hammering. And, they were all over the place. And he was the sort of lone star. He kept their heads above water. And then this season, he's really flourished. So they couldn't afford to lose him. No, it would be an even bigger blow to United, I think, than what Van Dijk's injury has been to Liverpool. He was considered indispensable, but they've managed to cover for him. I don't think that United have got the resources. They've not got anybody who can step into his shoes. But that doesn't mean they're going to buy somebody in January, because it hasn't happened yet. But they don't have cover in that position. They've got to wrap him in a bit of cotton wool, I think. Absolutely.
Wouldn't Paul Pogba come into the category of somebody who might be capable of stepping up if he got his attitude right?
Different type of player, though, isn't he?
Yeah, but he should be doing what Fernandes has been doing. Yeah, this has been my read all along. He's playing a nice little Scott McTominay kind of role at United, Pogba at the moment, which is great, except he costs 90 million quid and McTominay costs nothing. Yeah. So, but Pogba, if you spend 90 million quid, I think you're expecting a little bit more.
All right.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Also, 1 point can I say, if Villa win their 2 games in hand, they go second.
Exactly.
Let's not write them off.
I was just going to say, opponents Villa come into the game in 5th position, Arvid. Are we surprised at how well? I mean, last year they were only fighting relegation at the beginning of the year, weren't they?
They were, but no, it's just down to recruitment, getting it right. Dean Smith has done a lot, but he, for me, one of the best right backs in the Premier League as well. Konsa has come in at centre back, shows that they've got a partnership there. There's a less reliance on Grealish. Grealish has stepped up his game, but there's a lesser reliance on him. And Ollie Watkins bangs in the goals, and Martinez in goal. So it's all been down to recruitment, and they've been able to get it right from the start because they identified what they needed and they went out and got it. So no surprises there. But yeah, they've been playing some good stuff as well. And so for me, this is a game that I really look forward to this weekend.
Yeah, Bob, Aston Villa this season, maybe they're not surprising because they've got a team of good players. And we said at the start of the season, their recruitment's really good. And now it's showing, it's bearing fruit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They are, I think they've shown a few clubs up, haven't they, in how to get players that will automatically, immediately fit into the way the team plays. Great research done. And but don't forget that Tom McGinn has also played a big part, and he was missing for much of last season. He's a key man in midfield, and he was injured, and they missed him badly. That's why they went down and had to fight a relegation battle. But the way Barclay in particular, although he's out at the moment, the way he's fitted in, he has an almost telepathic understanding with Jack Grealish. They played together for England, but barely played a game, I think, before he joined. So I don't think there was too much that developed there. But they seem to click immediately. And the balance of the side is right. I mean, they got the spine right. They got a decent goalkeeper for a start. Yeah. Probably Arsenal's best keeper. Very, very solid. Emi Martinez, been at Arsenal for 10 years, under the radar, hardly played in the first team. And yet we saw when he came in for Leno, what a great keeper he was. And I was amazed that they let him go for 20 million. He's been outstanding for Villa. When you've got a guy like that at the back, one of the best keepers in the Premier League, I would say, this season. It gives great confidence to a side. So all the way through, they've got good players. And Ollie Watkin from Brentford, I mean, championship pedigree, you know, there's going to be doubts about him, but he's taken to it like a duck to water as well. So, you know, full marks to Dean Smith there.
Brilliant stuff. Man United versus Aston Villa. It's a Saturday 4 a.m. kickoff. Tottenham Hotspur versus Leeds is Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Tottenham's match in midweek against Fulham on Thursday was called off, Arvin Sidhu. So they're going to come into this one fresh. But your lot, Leeds, come into this one off the back of a 5-0 win, which has got to be great.
Yeah, Tottenham got 6 days rest. Jose was unhappy with the postponement because of how late it came. He made a comment of it being the best league in the world, but you need to get your coordination of these things right. But yeah, the game of the weekend, I mean, you've got the one that sits back and the one that keeps going forward. So something has to give, or it might not. So that makes for interesting reading. But yeah, Leeds have got the second most shots in the Premier League after Liverpool. You would expect them to kind of shoot on site against Spurs, but Spurs on the break. We've seen Kane, we've seen Son, what they can do. Leeds have to be careful here. They cannot commit too much forward. But Bielsa, knowing Bielsa, that's the way he does it. So it's going to make a very interesting meeting. If anything, this game is going to be on the knife edge for me because anything could happen. Leeds could outrun Spurs players. Eric Dyer has played every game, including cup games for Spurs. He's not had any rest. Jose has come on and said Tango and Ndombele can't last 90 minutes. So those are things that Leeds probably will try and look at exploiting if they can outrun Spurs. But then again, Spurs have had that rest. So yeah, like I said, very interesting reading for this one.
Strangely, on a little dip of form at the moment, are Jose Mourinho's Tottenham, Des Colgill. Who do you fancy this one? Do you reckon there'll be goals? Will it be VAR tainted?
Almost certainly. I can see Mourinho sprinting on and crossing for the winning goal in the 104th minute because this one has controversy written all over it. It really does. Just for some reason, you look at it and go, something really newsworthy is going to happen here. Because Jose's been whinging and moaning. He whinges if the team plays. He whinges if the team don't play. He whinges if he's not told that he should have got up at 4 o'clock in the morning rather than 5 o'clock in the morning. It's typical Mourinho. And he's just trying to wind up Leeds. And Leeds are just going to run into Tottenham. And there'll be collisions all over the place. This will be talked about for ever and a day, this game. I've just got this feeling about this match. Do not miss this one. And I can see Tottenham winning it with a disputed, extraordinarily controversial late goal or something just to pull the air from Leeds' lungs because they've had that big win. So now they're due a downer. That's the Leeds way. And the Tottenham way is to be horrible and stuffy. How about that for a prediction?
We'll hold you to that, Des. We'll hold you to that.
Bob, Des has set us up nicely for a 0-0, hasn't he?
Absolutely. I don't think I'll even bother watching it now. Nothing to see there.
You wait and see. I've got a feeling in my bones about this.
But
yeah.
this is the
well,
kind
Tottenham,
of game...
they'll certainly want to play.
Yeah. We often accuse Bielsa, Bob, of maybe being too gung-ho. Do you reckon this is the type of game where he needs to sit back a little bit?
Well, they weren't gung-ho. They kept 2 clean sheets, you know, and they weren't gung-ho in the last couple of games. He knows how to defend. He does this because he believes it's the best way to win. And I mean, if only a few more managers were like that, you know, football would be even better. Perhaps he should have a beer with Mourinho and, you know, see what they come up with in a brainstorming session. No, I mean, they can defend. I mean, Calvin Phillips, I mean, they've got one of the best defensive midfielders, shielders of the back four in the game. I mean, I think he's up there with Declan Rice. I think he could well be number 1 choice for England. I mean, he's a superb player, superb reader of the game. So Leeds are very physical. They're very fit. So they can get about the field. They cover more kilometers and it's, you can say kilometers, than just about anybody else in a game. So they're not an easy touch at all. Having said that, I mean, Spurs do have the rapier-like strike force of Son and Kane, but you know, I think Leeds can give Spurs a really good game here, and it will be a test for that Spurs defence. You mentioned Dyer. Yes, I think he's due a rest, and you've got fullbacks who can be a little bit dodgy, Aurier and Davis if he plays. So Spurs are far from watertight, and Mourinho will be incandescent if they don't get 3 points here, because he's looking at playing, thanks to the backlog of fixtures, he's looking at playing 7 games in 16 days in the coming weeks. So he won't want to be passing up points at this stage. They've had a little blip, but I think this will be a very, very interesting game.
All right, it's the early kickoff on Saturday. Tottenham against Leeds is Saturday at 8:30 p.m. West Bromwich Albion take on a resurgent Arsenal Sunday at 4 a.m. this one. Sam Allardyce says that football, Arvind Sidhu, maybe needs a break after the recent rise in positives in the COVID-19 testing that's going around in the Premier League. Do you agree it needs a rest? I mean, there are a higher number of players now positive, aren't there?
He's saying they need a rest because obviously he's in the predicament that he is. You will hear that from the managers at the bottom end of the table. The question that Big Sam has to ask himself is that he predicted Arsenal would be in a relegation dogfight. He's going to need to perform against Arsenal this week. The question Big Sam needs to ask himself is, will he leave his 2 best attackers like Matheus Pereira and Filip Kronovic on the bench like he did against Leeds? That's the questions that Big Sam needs to ask himself. So my concern with Big Sam is that while he's got that bulletproof relegation CV, that he's never been relegated, and him keeping up Sunderland was one of the biggest achievements, is this a bit too far for him? Because at the end of the day, that West Brom team, it's a championship team. That I just feel there's not enough quality there to stay in the Premier League. Conor Gallagher helps them out, but when you have your left backs like Gibbs getting injured, Connor Townsend out, and you bring Lee Peltier in, it doesn't bode well. So Big Sam's got a lot of questions I think he needs to ask himself, but he's just saying that because he wants, obviously, the fixtures to be moved, so he spends more time with his players and drills them down to what he needs them to do.
Be interesting to see if Big Sam actually will have any money to spend come January. Yeah, Arsenal, Des Corkill, picking up, and I guess on paper, West Brom is probably a good opponent to have the way Arsenal are right now.
Yeah, as with Bob earlier on, really quite a while. Emil Smith-Rowe, for example, has been there for 4 or 5 years. He played on that Malaysia tour a couple of years ago and impressed. So, the Singapore tour when they came over, and he impressed. So they've got quality. Aubameyang's a sensational talent. Lacazette was much sought after. So Arsenal, to me, will be competing for Europe because they're only 2 wins away from a top 6 place. That's how tight and how congested this league is. So you can go through a bad run, and because nobody's yet gone on a sensational run of wins, although somebody will in the second half of the season. So Arsenal can get up into that top 6. And I think West Brom, after the 6-4 heroics and the comeback in the match against Liverpool, they were far more attack-minded with a 5-4-1 against Leeds. I tell you, if you go out and not try to win games, you get exactly what you deserve. And if Allardyce doesn't try to go out and try and win games, West Brom, who are 5 points adrift from safety, will not get anything. Because a point here and a point there isn't enough. You've got to go and get 3 points for a win. That was the whole point of introducing 3 points for a win, to encourage teams to go and win. And Allardyce, with that squad, if he sets up 6-4 or 5-4-1, is not going to win enough points, no matter how his reputation is. I worry for West Brom as much as I worry for Sheffield United.
All right, the Gunners are looking for a 3rd win on the bounce. It is a Sunday 4 a.m. kickoff. West Bromwich Albion against Arsenal. Newcastle versus Leicester City could be good fun, Bob. It's a Sunday, 10:15 p.m. kickoff. The Geordies got an impressive point against Liverpool on Wednesday. Can they build on that? Or will the empty St. James's Park still boo Steve Bruce?
You talk about building on things. There isn't much of that being done this season, is there? It's a seesaw season, and I think that there's more chance of having an asterisk against this season than there was last season, actually, because it seems a little bit more distorted. Last season, they managed to get it done in reasonable fashion. This season, even if they're able to continue playing, which is questionable given the number of cases in the UK right now, it's going to be incredibly crowded, the fixture list. And there's going to be even stranger results, I think, coming. And we're already getting some pretty strange ones. I mean, Liverpool beating Crystal Palace 7 away from home and then being held 0-0 by Newcastle. I mean, that's about as strange as it gets, isn't it, really? So it's very hard to forecast. And it makes it exciting, yes. It's an open race, and you can't take your eyes off it. It really is. I think it's probably a one-off season. This actually. I think things may settle down once all this is over. But getting back to this game, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle didn't even win this game. I mean, it's like that. On paper, Leicester should stroll it, shouldn't they? I mean, they've got Vardy in pretty good form, goal-scoring form, and Newcastle's defence, although they played heroically against Liverpool, on paper isn't anything to shout about. You can't expect Darlow to have another game of the season, 48 hours later. All points to a Leicester win. But as I say, you wouldn't rule anything out.
Maybe there's a bit of pressure on Brendan Rodgers going into this one because Crystal Palace held Leicester to a 1-1 draw in midweek. Expected to win that one, maybe, Brendan Rodgers, that the way Leicester City are going, or expectancy levels too high, Des?
For Leicester, expectancy levels are great high because they've got a good squad. I think the one thing they are missing, and a few people have pointed out, Iheanacho came in, missed the penalty, had that header, which was arguably an even better chance that hit him on the shoulder in the 1-1 against Palace. But Bob just said something fantastic. He said, you can't take your eyes off this league. Fantastic. That's why we don't need breaks. That's why we need 48 hours between games. That's why we need teams who have got millions to spend with injury crises. Just sensational because it's not predictable. It's not boring. You look at every game and you go, ooh, Palace lost 7-0 and 3-0. Ooh, and they could win here. And Leicester, in the last game against Leicester. And Leicester, will they win? They can score 5 against Man City and then they can draw against Palace and be second best. And so it's a fantastic thing of what football is meant to be all about. As tight, as close and as tense as you can possibly have it. Can Leicester win? Yes. Can they lose? Absolutely. Can Newcastle turn it on again? Probably not, because they're not very good and they raised their game against Liverpool. But Bob said it. It's impossible to take your eyes off this league this season. It's great.
I think this one will be a good game. I think there will be goals. Newcastle-Leicester is Sunday, 10:15 p.m. Chelsea take on Man City in arguably the game of the New Year's Day fixtures. It's a Monday, midnight kickoff, this one. It was Chelsea 1, Aston Villa 1 in midweek. Chelsea stuttering suddenly with Thomas Tuchel available after his dismissal from PSG, Arvin. A lot of, as the press might work, Lampard is under a bit of pressure, you reckon?
Yes. We don't like managers being given the boot, not enough of time to work things out. But when you've spent the amount of money that you have, he's got 1 win in 5. No coincidence that drip in form has been when Hakim Ziyech has been out of the squad, because I felt like when he came in, he really gave them a different lift. But they need a result badly, because when you look at who's out there, besides Tuchel, you've got Allegri out there who's available as well. Obviously, Fabrizio Romano, very well respected, has come on and said that Roman Abramovich has given Lampard the vote of confidence that he's here to stay, but that does not mean anything. And we know how Roman can be. If he doesn't see his investment bringing the returns that he needs, Lampard will be shown the door, unfortunately. I was reading a very interesting piece, and it was how Kai Havertz and Timo Werner haven't done it in the English league so far. Obviously, it's new for them. But Alan Shearer came out and said, the next time Chelsea are given a penalty, give it to Timo Werner. Don't give it to someone like Jorginho. Give it to Timo Werner, because when he starts feeling that feeling of getting a goal, hopefully that will help him. So I found that quite interesting reading. But Chelsea go into this one needing the result much more than Man City.
It's quite obvious to the watching football fan that Lampard is trying to shoehorn Werner and Tammy Abraham up front, where a lot of Chelsea fans have pointed out on social media. Wouldn't he prefer the number 9 role, Des? Because they specifically asked for Des. But any truth in that? Is Werner being played out of position, you reckon, Des?
So he had that central position at Leipzig, but when you see him playing for Germany, he wanders all over. They can play left and right and centre. The modern football in this 4-3-3, you look at Salah, they play left, right, centre, sometimes up top. You need that versatility. And word in Liverpool is that lack of versatility is what persuaded Jurgen Klopp not to break the bank. That and one or two moralistic issues going on at the time surrounding COVID. But that was one of the reasons why Klopp wasn't prepared to break the bank for Timo Werner. Many people thought it was a mistake for Liverpool not to chase him because they'd been after him for a long time. And I think that's maybe being borne out. But Werner's good enough. Abraham can't play elsewhere. I think there is a problem. Abraham is a number 9 and the number 9 only, whereas Timo Werner is good enough to be a Salah, to go left, to go right. And I just need to remind you, again, it's another Liverpool reference, but Luis Suarez missed chances galore in his first season with Liverpool. He was getting in positions and people were talking about his strike rate, a 1 in 8 chances, something. And they're talking similarly about Werner. I'm not saying Werner's a Luis Suarez, but you just give these guys a time to adapt. And as Alvin said, I think it was, if he gets a penalty, puts the ball into the back of the net, you'll see Timo Werner really, really flourish. He's a terrific player. He really is. He just needs a bit of time.
Absolutely.
But Chelsea need to win this. Chelsea must win this. Otherwise, City get closer, and Chelsea, who played more games than anybody else, drop down. This is huge, huge for Chelsea.
City were going along nicely until they were hit quite hard by COVID. Their game against Everton was postponed. Apparently, I think there are reports that there are up to four first-team players out, 2 of which we know, Gabriel Jesus and Kyle Walker, Bob Holmes. But before all that, City were going along nicely, winning games, keeping clean sheets.
Nicely, but not quite up to the standards of their 2 title-winning seasons. And I think there's been a significant drop in performance level just about everywhere on the field. And I don't think Pep can quite put his finger on it. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Kevin De Bruyne, I mean, he was outstanding the last 2 years and, deservedly Footballer of the Year in, I think, the writers' idea. But he's not been the same player this year at all. And there's something missing. And even Pep can't put his finger on it. So I think this is actually quite a big game for City as well. I mean, I think Pep's future is a little bit more secure than Frank Lampard's, but they're not up to their usual standards. And with the title race being so open and United in particular being up there, it must bother City fans and the owners that City are not sort of performing. And if they've got a serious problem with COVID, they're going to be weakened. And the only good thing is that John Stones has come back. He was being written off by many people, but he's got his head down. He's been there 5 years now, And he really looked out of sorts at one time, didn't he? He never looked as if he'd play for Pep again. But he seems now to be preferred to Laporte at the back. So they have been a bit more solid at the back, but at the expense of the goals drying up. I mean, Raheem Sterling, he was scoring 30 goals last season. He hasn't got many. He doesn't seem to be able to find the net. And Jesus he's out now with COVID. He wasn't having a very good season anyway. Aguero has missed most of the season. He's come back in as a sub a couple of times, but I think he's some way away from being match fit, but he'll probably play. So yeah, a big game this, and I think it's very, very important for both teams, and it's virtually impossible to say which way this will go.
Brilliant. Nicely previewed. Chelsea, Man City, then Monday, midnight. That one kicks off. Right, a look at some of the other ties this weekend. Crystal Palace take on Sheffield United Saturday at 11 p.m. This one, for the hardcore, I'd be glad if they put this one on at 4 a.m. Unfortunately, this one's probably prime time for us in Asia. Des, anything nice to say about either team? You'd want to relegate both of them, wouldn't you?
So this is the kind of game that makes the idea of a breakaway league palatable. I'm very much against it, but this is exactly what the big clubs are saying. You put this on in prime time in Asia, you do this 20 weeks in the year, and people will not pay their subscription fee. And that is the truth of the matter. And so the Premier League have done superbly to actually package themselves as a collective. There is a duty of care for teams to try to go out and win games of football. I get stick from that on this place and online, but there's an absolute duty of care. If I am paying you good money, you damn well better entertain, not just me, but millions around. And if millions stop paying, you're in big trouble. Palace try and attack. Sheffield United try to work their way out of football, try to make this at least something of an occasion. Otherwise, European Super League, here we come. And we don't want that.
Palace are on a 5-game winless run in the Premier League. Sheffield United have picked up 2 points from 16 Premier League games this season. 0-0 written all over it. No, 1-0 Palace win. Saturday, 11 p.m. that one. Brighton against Wolves might provide us with a bit more excitement. Nuno Espirito Santo's men have already faced Tottenham, Man United since Christmas. This one might be a welcome opponent for Wolves. Do you fancy them in this, Bob?
Yes, I do. I mean, Wolves have actually played well the last couple of games. But they're still missing Jimenez, and they've got a very interesting replacement lined up, if the papers are to be believed, and that's Diego Costa. He's been released from his contract at Atletico Madrid, and he doesn't need any introduction, does he, in the Premier League? I'd absolutely love to see him back. I think he's a great character. And he's not a bad player either. And he's probably just what Wolves need, that physical presence to spearhead their attack. I think it would be fascinating to see him. And but even without him, they won't have him tonight anyway, whatever happens. But even without him, I think that Wolves should beat Brighton. I fear for Brighton. One home win in the calendar year.
Yeah.
One home win. I don't know how they managed to stay up. I mean, they eked out draws, but draws, Des said, draws are no good, not in their situation. And with the likes of Fulham showing a bit of fight, and Burnley and Big Sam arriving on the scene, it's a dogfight down there. And I don't know whether Brighton have actually got it in them to stay up. They need a win here, and they're going to struggle.
All right. Well, each of the last 3 between Brighton and Wolves have ended up in draws. Burnley versus Fulham is Sunday at 8 p.m. The Clarets and the Cottagers have both shown signs of improvement, Arvin Sidhu. Burnley, I guess we always knew they've got the Premier League pedigree now, whether or not Des likes their football. But Sean Dyche has got them working 100%, full pelt all the time. Do you reckon Fulham can up their standard?
Scott Parker's improved them. I mean, he's literally changed their entire back four. Ola Aina, Joachim Anderson, Tosin Adebayo, they've come in. They look more secure than they did at the beginning start of the season. Obviously, they need to score going forward. That's been a bit of a challenge because I think he's got a bit of a conundrum with how to get the most out of Mitrovic, who was banging in the goals in the Championship last season, but not really at the Premier League quality. But to give that some hope, Burnley are going into the game with potential new ownership. I think ALK, the American consortium, 170 million, potentially going to be fully in charge by then. The current chairman is moving out as well. It's a new era for Burnley. Maybe Sean Dyche will be given a little bit to spend and could maybe make this team a bit more attractive than they are because they are threadbare. I mean, really, they're against, when they played Sheffield United, I looked at their bench. They had 2 goalkeepers on their bench, 4 defenders, because they clearly couldn't fill it up. So interesting new era for Sean Dyche if it changes anything of what Burnley represent.
170 million for a club is good money. I'd buy 2, please. I'll have 2 of those. All right, Southampton versus Liverpool is Tuesday at 4 a.m. The Saints drew 0-0 with West Ham on Tuesday. Liverpool drew 0-0 with Newcastle on Wednesday. We're set for a 4-4 draw, Des.
Something like that. Southampton have stopped scoring goals for some reason. I think it's 3 without a goal, 2 0-0s and a 1-0 defeat. And even before then, it's only 1 goal in the last 4 or something. So something has just gone off the boil, I think, with Ralph Hasenhüttl's side. They were being very, very highly touted. They got up as high as 3rd in the table. Tough assignment, St. Mary's, but Liverpool have done relatively well there in recent seasons. And I think there will be a reaction in terms of the front 3 in just trying to get back to scoring goals. If Liverpool drop more points here, then you do really begin, as Arvin did, to ask questions about, are they really up for it this year? Are there too many problems? Personally, I'm not overly concerned yet. I do wish we had a centre-back who could stay fit more than 1 game at a time. But this is a huge game for Liverpool. But for Southampton, equally, they need to get back on track as well. This one, I'm relatively confident for Liverpool, but it could so easily go the other way.
Yeah, well, worth getting up at 4 a.m. because you just know Thiago, Bob Holmes, is going to be given more minutes on the pitch. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. to watch that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's really exciting that he's back. I was excited when he signed. He brings something different to the midfield, which was for all the deserved plaudits that they got. Henderson, Wijnaldum, and whoever else was playing there, Milner, sometimes could be a little pedestrian. That was a criticism of them. And sometimes, they were just plugging away and relying on the brilliance up front to nick a goal just before the end of a game or something, which they always seemed to do last season. They're not quite managing that this year, which has obviously contributed to the fact that they're not running away with it, that and VAR. But to have 3 centre-backs, one after the other, and then one to come back and then get injured again, it makes you think there's some kind of jinx on that, on the number 5 shirt, doesn't it? Although number 5 shirt is actually Wijnaldum's. But in old money, it was a number 5 shirt. Des knows what I'm talking about.
Proper number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 1 to 11.
5 and 6 central defenders have always been.
Yep. This is pretty important. Nat Phillips didn't really cover himself with glory against Callum Wilson, did he? In that game, I think Reece Williams might get the nod for this one. It'll be interesting to see, and they'll be up against Danny Ings, who did manage to find the net last week, but it was disallowed. But again, he showed his poaching ability, didn't he?
Yeah.
And sometimes you wonder if Liverpool actually could have used that in 1 or 2 games this season. So big game for both teams, as all these matches are. I mean, we've gone through the entire fixture list here, and we've said each one is a vital games. That's the beauty of this season.
As a Liverpool fan, I'm sick and tired of Southampton poaching Liverpool's best players.
We've taken about 7 and they've only taken 1, right? Or 2.
Poaching. All right, that's your lot. That's match week 17. We all wish you a happy new year. Many thanks to Bob Holmes, to Des Corkill, to Arvin Sidhu. And it's a happy new year, everybody. Bye-bye.